federal government is facing an imminent shutdown later this week, which certainly will affect people across the country and world, but also here in Montgomery County, where so many federal employees live and where so many programs are being implemented. Let's be clear. This is an impasse Republicans are responsible for. And the word is going out to federal agencies to prepare for the worst because negotiations are not close to closing this issue at this point. Hopefully that's one of the things we'll hear more from Congressman Raskin about. The worst government shutdown came just after I took office in late 2018, early 2019, when 38% of the federal workforce was out of work. And for a little more than a month, I remember the stress it put on our residents, businesses, and even our own government operations. And some federal workers are forced to work without pay, with uncertainty over whether they'll eventually be paid. That must be decided by Congress after the fact. Others are furloughed and may not get paid at all, and also to be decided by Congress. Then there are contractors and subcontractors, and all of the employees who face even more uncertainty. The fight over the shutdown stems from a Republican dogged effort to destroy important federal programs and making meaningful difference. And I want to quote the Agriculture Secretary, who told the New York Times, if we have a shutdown, WIC gets shut down. WIC stands for Women, Infants, and Children, the people who benefit from the government program responsible for providing healthy food for struggling single parents and their families. In 2021, an average of more than 16,000 children and nearly 13,000 women in Montgomery County participated in WIC. Based on census estimates, there are approximately 65,000 children under the age of 6 who are actually eligible to participate in WIC. In previous shutdowns, federal research labs had to shutter their important work until cash flow is turned on again, which could have impact on some companies that have made Montgomery County one of the top life sciences hubs in the nation. The Republicans, unbelievably, are also proposing to cut Title I funding by 82%. What does that mean for Montgomery County? Our school system currently receives $51 million in Title I, which goes to 35 of our schools serving the most impacted students and communities. I will add, mostly people of color. This funds about 300 teachers and staff in Title I schools, gives full-day Head Start programs, and given the children who benefit from this funding, their attack on this is nothing less than a racist, cynical maneuver to continue the inequality that is the legacy of slavery, which they would like to pretend either didn't exist or was a perfectly fine thing, except for maybe roughness around the edges. And the 82% in reduction would cut MCPS allocation by $42 million to just $9 million. It would reduce the critical importance of Title I schools, the critical supports our Title I schools receive, including Title I summer programming, academic interventions, social emotional support, and other direct services to our students. This is absurd, mean-spirited, and bad for the nation, and it's also a reminder of why they work so hard to erase American history so that nobody understands how we got there and what we need to do to fix the problems that have been created here. In Montgomery County, we're grateful for all the efforts of our congressional delegation to bring some sense to Congress, especially including Congressman Jamie Raskin, who's joining us today. We're very fortunate to have Jamie, who is recognized nationally as a champion of democracy, a constitutional scholar, and an excellent legislator. He's also a ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, and he and his staff understand the worries of our residents facing possible shutdown, and they're ready to help wherever possible, as they have always done so well. So my team's worked well with yours, Congressman Raskin, and we thank you for that, and I'm proud to have you as my guest this week. So the show is yours now.
Mark, it's a delight to be with you and with all of your excellent colleagues in the county government who have assembled, and we benefit immensely from the hard work of your staff, and we love working with you guys, even in tough times like this. Let me quickly just state something about where we are with respect to the shutdown, and then what the practical implications are if it in fact happens. With my Democratic colleagues, we've been working overtime to try to avert a shutdown, which we know from our own personal and collective experience has been a disaster for tens of thousands of people who are my constituents and hundreds of thousands of people throughout Maryland and Virginia and DC and millions of people across the country. I reintroduced with my colleague Don Beyer from Virginia the End Shutdowns Act, which would prevent shutdowns going forward categorically by initially instigating an automatic continuing resolution on October 1st if Congress has not met its constitutional responsibilities by passing a budget. In other words, if you get a faction like the MAGA faction, which tries to throw a monkey wrench into the budget process and succeeds in doing so, on October 1st, there would be an automatic continuing resolution that would keep the government funded using the same budget allocations that were in the prior year's budget. We also have been putting pressure on Speaker McCarthy, and we wrote a long letter to Speaker McCarthy telling him to continue to abide by the agreement we made in May to avoid just this possibility of a political effort to wreck this essential responsibility of government, which is just passing a budget. All we're asking Speaker McCarthy to do is to abide by the agreement that we had. And that means that we could overwhelmingly pass a budget because the Democrats would stand by it. The problem is that he's being threatened by the MAGA caucus, that if he goes forward with the agreement that we had entered into back in May, they would then try to vacate the chair, which is just the parliamentary speak for topple the speaker. They would essentially vote to overthrow his speakership and to end it if he does that. And I don't know whether or not they would follow through on it. I don't know whether or not they've got another candidate. But in any event, the Democrats stand prepared to vote with Speaker McCarthy in continuing the budget agreement that we made back in May, anticipating just this crossroads where they would try to do this to us again. Having said all of that, we are fighting for the best, but we are preparing for the worst. And we want to make sure everybody's got the information that they need to know. The first thing is that federal workers who live in Montgomery County, and I've got 56,000 active federal employees in the 8th district and tens of thousands more retirees and tens of thousands more whose livelihoods are intertwined with the federal government as federal contractors and people who work in associated industries. All of those people should definitely check out the OMB website, the Office of Management Budget website, which has prepared a resource consolidating different federal agency contingency plans across the federal government. As you know, there is a federal statutory requirement that each agency and department create a list of both accepted and not accepted employees in the event of a government shutdown and a furlough. If you're not accepted, that means the furlough applies to you. That means you are not going to work. Although because of legislation that I introduced with Don Beyer and Jerry Conley and the Maryland delegation during the last shutdown, everybody will get paid for the paychecks that they miss, every federal employee. That's not true of contractors, but it's true of federal employees. But Mark, you would not be surprised, given the devoted constituents we have, how many people are very stressed out about not going to work, even though they're going to be paid. They want to be able to do their jobs, and they understand how essential and critical their work is. And I've seen that also in my staff, because I have to delineate who's an essential employee and who's not. And all of my staff are essential employees. And even the interns have told me they want to come in. And we're waiting for an opinion from the House of Representatives about whether we can continue to have the interns who are paid a minimal amount, but they're paid something. And we do consider their work essential. Our whole team is essential to meet the demands of the constituency. And I've got more than 800,000 people in the 8th District who we respond to. So in terms of my office, we're open for business. And so we are going to be there to deal with people's questions and people's concerns and problems. And there are always a ton of unforeseen problems that come up as much as we try to plan for the basics. Now, let me go over what some of those basics are. Will I get my Social Security, my SSI, my Medicare, my Medicaid, my VA benefits? The answer to that is yes. Those benefits, your Social Security check, your Medicare, Medicaid payment checks, those will still be coming. However, in all of those departments, there are things that are done beyond the issuance of standard benefits, and those could be dramatically affected. For example, if you take the VA, it's not just getting people VA benefits. There's also divisions that deal with education and job training and support for veteran-owned businesses, which is very important to us in Montgomery County because of the special programs we have related to that. There are even programs that directly assist homeless veterans. All of those could be affected and almost certainly will be, again, depending on the classification of which employees are accepted and therefore considered essential and which are not accepted and therefore will be furloughed. That is something that is going to be done on a department by department, program by program basis. And so, federal employees should check out both the website of their own department or their own, their own bosses, or they should check the OMB, the Office of Management and Budget website. Do federal employees get paychecks during a shutdown? No, they will not, but they will get paid when it's all over for the pay that's been missed because of this legislation that I mentioned to you before that we got passed and we fought for during the last shutdown. Can federal employees who are furloughed apply for unemployment benefits? They may be eligible for unemployment compensation for federal employees. Maryland has made that possible. OPM worked with Maryland to allow furloughed employees to file for unemployment without having to go out and prove that they're looking for other work. But then once they get paid back for the paychecks they missed, they would have to repay the state for the money that's essentially been floated to them. Military and federal retirees will continue to receive their retirement benefits. But the processing of new applications or other requested changes will be delayed, which I found out because I had a couple of constituents who were just about to retire in the middle of this, and their new retirement status may be affected by the shutdown and workers being furloughed. Air traffic controllers, TSA officers, Customs and Border Protection agents will remain on the job without pay. If they don't, if some of them don't report to work, which is what we saw during the last Republican shutdown, there may be significant delays and longer wait times across the country. There's nothing that can be done about that, but there are simply some workers who say they can't afford to work without pay, even for one pay period. Will air travel be affected? Well, all of those people I just mentioned, the air traffic controllers, the TSA officers, and so on, will remain on the job without pay. Again, some people might not show up, so there could be delays. But if all goes well and we get through this thing quickly enough, we hope there will be no major disruptions. FEMA staff is still going to be working, accepted, and will still respond to emergencies. One area where there will be a dramatic impact, Mark, is in the SNAP program for women, infants, and children. I think you mentioned this. It will quickly run out of funding, and it will be unable to provide food for children and parents in need. And, in case of a prolonged shutdown, SNAP benefits will almost certainly be affected. And we've already, had some, very anxious people concerned about what this is going to mean if this goes on for a long time. Now, all of it might make you ask the question, why exactly would we shut down the government of the United States, something that no foreign enemy of the United States has ever been able to do? Like, why would the Congress be put in a position where we're shutting down our own government? And, this is a matter of a lot of speculation among members, as we were here last night till I think 1 or 1:30 in the morning. Some people think that there's a faction in Congress which is now just addicted to chaos and crisis, and a shutdown obviously continues the kind of chaos and pandemonium that they've become addicted to. It might be more specific than that, Mark, and I'm going to be talking about this week. Donald Trump has sent out on Truth Social, his social media platform, numerous statements saying that there's a big deadline coming at the end of September. This is the last chance to stop the, quote, political prosecutions of Donald Trump. He believes that if we shut the entire government of the United States down, it will halt his criminal prosecutions in federal court in Florida and in Washington, D.C. And Matt Gaetz, who's been one of the leading exponents for Donald Trump in the Republican conference, has echoed that, saying that the boss, that Donald Trump has said, no continuing resolution, hold the line, which I found particularly irksome, given that hold the line was what our Capitol officers were chanting and yelling on January the 6th when they were attacked by insurrectionists. But the analogy is not a totally casual one there, because this really continues the idea of trying to shut down the government and violate the American constitutional order. So Donald Trump believes that it might shut down the federal criminal prosecutions. I don't agree with that. In the last shutdown, the federal courts were interrupted in terms of a lot of civil litigation and had to postpone that. But most criminal cases advanced. But he thinks that if he creates enough chaos in the country, they won't be able to go forward, and he'll be able to make it to the election without having to face a jury of his peers. I don't know whether or not he's right, but I do know that that determination, that decision to try to shut down the government of the United States and to spread mass pain and mass confusion and tremendous budgetary losses is a moral scandal and a shame. And none of us in Congress should be associated with that. And yet there is a faction that is willing to do whatever Donald Trump wants. And unfortunately, they seem to be driving the train of the majority at this point, which is why we do have to prepare for the worst.